This is the year 2005, not 1945. We're not fighting each other anymore. These are our partners, they're our colleagues, and our future lies in Europe.
Well, that was Tony Blair 8 years ago, but now it is 2013. No, they are not fighting another world war, but somehow Germany has managed to rise to the top to be the strong man in Europe once again. Welcome to the Bible in the News. This is John Billington with you this week. With the severe economic turmoil that has been the last few years, the reality of being chained to Europe is starting to bite. And it is this economic turmoil that has given Germany her even stronger position. It was back in 1990 when Nicholas Ridley, the Secretary of State for Trade and Industry in Margaret Thatcher's government, came out speaking about the proposed economic and monetary union and said it was a, quote, German racket designed to take over the whole of Europe. At the time, there was an uproar and he was forced to resign, although many speculated that Margaret Thatcher was probably agreed. But we have spoken about the rise of a Northern Confederacy of Nations for years on the Bible in the News, with Germany gaining a dominant position and from there forming an alliance with Russia. So to us, those words made a lot of sense. Writing about the sequence of events that will bring the return of the Lord Jesus Christ back to the earth, a writer by the name of Graham Pierce wrote the following in 1970. If this sequence is correct, there are two important consequences for us. First, East and West Europe are soon to be united, by the West coming under the control of the East. These words were penned at the height of the Cold War, and it was not for almost another 20 years before the East and the West would be actually united. That said, we have not seen the end of the story yet, when the West will come under the control of the East. Or, in the words of John Thomas in the 1800s, Europe will be chained and Russia triumphant. At this point, we are watching the German beast of Revelation chapter 17 ascend once again out of the pit that will lead us to the words of Daniel 12, a time of trouble such as never was. Much has been written on this subject in the Bible magazine, but we do recommend Volume 20, Number 4, which can be found under the Back Issues tab on BibleMagazine.com. The Scriptures paint a picture of a very troubling time ahead as this beast arises. And if you think the idea of a Fourth Reich or empire is far-fetched, listen to the following from Nigel Farage, the leader of the United Kingdom Independence Party, or UKIP, and also a member of the European Parliament. The first from an interview with Fox News, and the second from a speech here in Canada at the Manning Networking Conference 2013.
What has happened through the middle of all of this is Chancellor Merkel from Germany has now become the dominant figure. And she's in a very difficult situation because the Germans are very unhappy signing a blank open cheque to Greece in perpetuity. And she has now really rather taken charge of the whole of the European situation. So we now have a German-dominated Europe. The very thing that we were told the European project would stop, the very thing that twice in the 20th century we fought and made huge sacrifices to stop, we now have a German-dominated Europe. And I don't think that's a good thing for Europe, and I think what is being done to democracy in the name of saving this Eurozone is something that should worry all of us.
I am absolutely, wholly and viscerally opposed to the direction in which this European project is moving, and here's why. Here's why. The attempt to get France and Germany sitting round the table talking to each other in the 1950s was absolutely the right and sensible thing to do. You know, not just the First World War and the Second World War, but a Franco-Prussian War in 1870 as well. 3 times within 70 years, disastrous conflict between France and Germany. So the idea of getting them to talk together and to trade together was a good, sensible idea. But you see, communism was rather a good idea in a way, wasn't it? Well, the idea that the world was going to become perfect and fair and lovely, but we saw in practice that the road to hell was paved with good intentions, and so it has become with the European project. Because where Europe is today, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very dark and dangerous place. Very dark and dangerous indeed. The fundamental misconstruction that is the euro is now leading to untold misery and, I think, potentially huge danger in the Mediterranean countries.
To add to all of that, the following was published last year in the German magazine Der Spiegel in an article that was highly critical of Germany itself. I quote, "When we look back at the media reports of 2012, there is much about this year that hints at the country's Nazi past." And later on it says, "This year, amid fresh debates over xenophobia, many are left wondering if the ugly German is back." If they can say that about themselves, what are we to think when this week the foundation stone is laid for the rebuilding of the Berlin Palace, the home of a line of Prussian and German monarchs? It was, according to another German news broadcaster, a symbol of the German Empire. And add this to the already restored and back in business Reichstag, and another highly symbolic building that reminds of the once chilling empire in the days when Hitler thundered from the platform. And all of a sudden, these words don't seem so far-fetched. And this idea is not so far-fetched. And if that was not enough, Germany has decided to boycott Jewish products made in Judea and Samaria. In an article on the Jerusalem Post this week, Michael Freund makes the following comment. I quote, "In light of its own sordid record during the 20th century, Germany and its leaders have a special responsibility to be exceptionally sensitive to such issues, particularly when they relate to the Jews. After all, it was 80 years ago, in April 1933, that the Nazis launched a national-wide assault on Jewish-owned businesses throughout Germany, painting yellow and black Stars of David on storefronts and discouraging people from patronizing them. This was carried out under the slogan, 'Kauf nicht ben Juden,' don't buy from Jews. Hence, for any German government to stand up and declare, 'don't buy from Jews,' even if the proposal is limited to Jews of Judea and Samaria, is downright chilling and should send a shiver down everyone's spine." It was Albert Einstein that once described the position of the Soviet Jews as follows. I quote, "A people, a nation, is like a tree which is born with its own shadow. The higher the tree, the longer its shadow. If you like to call it not shadow, but fate. The shadow of the Jewish people is prophecy, vision of the end of the days. The shadow of the Romans was fame, domination of foreign lands. The shadow of the Russians is anti-Semitism." When the Germans and the Russians finally come together, it truly will be terrifying. But, upon further examination of Daniel 12, that Fourth Reich will meet its match with the Lord Jesus Christ. He is named there as Michael, which means "who like God," and with him will be those found faithful, from verse 2. "And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. May that day come soon with all God's judgments and blessings that will change this earth and bring a final end to the kingdoms of men." This has been John Billington with you this week. Please join us again next week when we will again look at the Bible in the News on BibleInTheNews.com.